Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Ram Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Ram Hare Ram
Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna Mahamantra ki Jai Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. So we'll have Kirtan now until 8 o'clock.
Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Krishnaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Nityananda
Vishnupadaya Krishna Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Nityananda Saraswati Devi Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Deshane Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Hri Advaita Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda
Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare
Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama Rama Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Rama Hare
Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna Prabhu, sound is not audible.
What, Prabhu?
Sound is not audible. We cannot hear. Somehow better.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare.
Hare
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Krishna
Krishna.
Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya
Guruji.
Hey, Jaya Jaya Gurudev, Gurudev, Jaya Jaya Gurudev. Nitya Gaura Haribo, 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 Nitya Gaura Haribo, 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 हरिनाम संकीर्तन की
Jai.
शिला प्रभुपाद की
Jai.
जय गौर प्रेमानंदी हरि हरि
Hare Hare. Thank you, Vrinda. Thank you, Prabhuji. It was really wonderful kirtan. It was very, very good. Somehow in the last point of time it was good sound, but earlier I felt it was low sound somehow.
Okay.
Settings.
Distance was little more. So
Yeah, maybe, yeah.
give me a few minutes. I'll go up and then log in again. I will
Sure,
stay on the same line, but give me.
Sure, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, everyone. Thank you for joining our Friday session. So until His Grace Ajit Krishna Prabhu joins, we will just recap the previous session. That way, at least we can save some time. Is it okay?
Yeah, Prabhu.
So who wants to go with the previous session's quick recap for 5 to 10 minutes. Ramsham Prabhu, Saujanya Mataji.
I can tell Prabhuji. So last session, we did 418, 419, and then 420. And the comparison that Prabhuji gave for the 1 minute, Prabhuji. Sorry, Prabhuji, come back. So 418, 419, and 420. And on a high level, Prabhuji said, like in 418, Krishna says that devotee is intelligent. And in 419, he said that devotee is in full knowledge. And 420, he said that devotee is satisfied and independent. And then in 418, what does that mean, that devotee is intelligent? The one who sees inaction in inaction and action in action in inaction. And once he becomes intelligent, and in 19, he says the important word, Gnanagni. So when you get that knowledge, that is like a fire that will burn our all the past karma. And then Prabhuji gave, in a summarized version, we all have this lot of actions that we have done, and then we are facing all the reactions. Now that can get nullified only when you start doing the devotional activities. And then for that, he said, Prabhupada gave a nice analogy. If one glass is full of water, and then you want to put milk, you have, unless you empty it, you cannot put. So we are already filled with those actions, the reactions of the actions, what we did, which are mainly with this 3 modes of material nature. And only when we bring that spirituality or the devotional activities and devotional service, that will empty our that will empty our little bit reaction, and then we get into the mode of realizing and the knowledge, and how we become intelligent in understanding. So basically bring that devotional service. So that was the main key point in 419. And also just like how in Sikshastakam we have Chetodarpanam, in that also that word Agni is used. So ultimately it's burning up our karma. So that way, why in the 3rd line they use a Gnana Agni. The reactions are burnt up in the fire of knowledge. The Gnana is the fire. And then the analogy was very easy, very good. And same thing, Prabhuji gave another reference, Samsara Dhava, we say, in that prayer also it's used, how we burn the desires of the samsara. So 420, again, only when we have, when you abandon the attachment for all this, then the devotee is satisfied and independent. So the connection is 18, 19, 20. That devotee is intelligent. And then because he is intelligent, he will do the spiritual activities and he'll do the devotional service. Why? Because now he is in full knowledge. And because of being intelligent and being in full knowledge and burnt up all the material action reactions, then that devotee gets satisfied and independent. That's in the 420. So that's the thing I can tell from what I understood and remembered. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji. It was a very good summarization and very good correlation between those 3 verses. Yeah, thank you.
Prabhuji explains very well. Short, but I don't know, I like it the way it makes it easy also to remember and write down. Otherwise, it's like every day we hear Bhagavad Gita, then I'm all over the place. I really appreciate. Thank you, Prabhuji, Ajit Krishna Prabhu. It's really Krishna's arrangement.
Welcome, Madhavi.
That is very true. Ramsham Prabhu, you want to add anything?
No, Prabhuji. So Mataji has already summarized as Ajit Krishna Prabhu last time, he, told with analogy and all. So to just giving little highlights on that, like in 18th, it was more into cover into the akarma, like Krishna consciousness kind of things, what we earlier read through, the 3 types of karma, akarma, and vikarma. So we already discussed earlier about vikarma is not much covered because it doesn't related to the the piousness or to the devotee. So that's what. So in this 18th verse, it was more into the Krishna consciousness, that is the akarma. So the activity which doesn't account for that the devotee. So and result of this is the transcendental kind of that it goes to Krishna for the Krishna enjoyment. That's what it is not countable, and it doesn't produce any kind of result and doesn't advertise the karma. And so in the next verses, like 19, it was related to somehow what Prabhuji was talking about, the different, I don't recollect much. Mataji already covered that. So that's all from my side, Prabhuji. So again, that 19 was, I think, related to the detachment of the sense gratification related. And yeah, Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Very nice, Prabhu. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna, Ajit Krishna Prabhu, Dandavat Pranam, all Guru Srila Prabhupada.
Jai Prabhupada, Pranam Prabhuji, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna,
Visit
Prabhuji.
our-
Dandavat Pranam, Guru Srila
Hare Krishna
Prabhupada.
Prabhuji, thank you very much. Hare Krishna Mataji, thank you very much for the nice recap, both Mataji and Ramsham Prabhu. As usual, it was very comprehensive, covered everything that we had discussed. So thank you for bringing us all back up to speed. So
I'll go to
I
you.
would like to add 2 more notes, Prabhuji. At the end, when you told
Yes, ma'am.
us 420, you made 2 important notes, like why it said abandoning all attachment to the results of his activities, whether he performs no fruitive action. There, like the key point is Krishna says, what you do is not important, but how you do is important. So like in 418, when it is said that whether you are engaged in all sorts of activities, so Krishna is not worried about what you do. He's mainly how you do. And why? Because, and then I really lost the connection, but I made a note. You told about the religion, like when someone asks, you say you are Hindu, Muslim. But then I think what I remember is religion is like, it's not like we are only this. Religion is nothing but faith. But what is the true religion is, we are the servant of God. That is what, but people cannot understand. It's like in this material world, we have to fill in, like we are Asian or Hindu, whatever. But in what context you said that, I don't remember, Prabhuji, because but just by reading 420 text, I was like, why did I write this? But I remember you told us this. And then the last analogy, I think Mukti Sangha Prabhu said, when there is heavy rain, like how we hold the umbrella, like that, we cover with the umbrella of all these anarthas, then we're not allowing for the mercy to come. So I remembered that, but I forget why the religion part was written, Prabhuji. That's okay.
yeah, we can discuss a little bit more when we get into the class about, basically it was the difference between religion and dharma. So, but anyway, we will discuss a little bit more if it wasn't clear. So faith and religion, they're 2 very different things. And so religion is actually a very important topic of Bhagavad Gita. So we'll discuss that more in the class. I mean, in the further later on in the discussion today.
Sure, Prabhuji. Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mother.
Thank you, Prabhu. So we'll start with the new session.
Yes. So let's start with so verses 20.
20.
Yeah, we done through 20, right? No, 19 or 20.
19, but 20, I think we just brushed it over, but if you
Yeah,
want
okay.
to look up 20, it's okay.
Yeah, we can start 20, 24. We can do those.
Okay, bro. So anybody wants to volunteer for reciting 20? Chapter 4, text 20. Okay, I will do that. Tektva karma phala sangam
Tyaktava karma bala
Sangam
nitya tripto nirashrayah
nitya tripto nirashya
Nirashrayah
karmani abhipravrittopi
karmani
Mani
abhipravrittopi
abhipravrittopi
naiva kinchit karosi saha.
naiva kinchit
iva
karoti
kinchit
saha.
karoti sha.
Translation. Abandoning all attachment to the results of his activities, ever satisfied and independent, he performs no fruitive action, although engaged in all kinds of undertakings.
Hare Krishna. Text
Prabhuji,
21.
Prajna can read. Prajna can read 20. Prajna, go ahead.
Krishna Prabhu. Nirashiryata chitatma
Nirashiryata chittatma
Chitatma
yakta sarva parigraha
yakta sarva parigraha
shariram kevalam karma
shariram
Kevalam
kevalam karma
kurvarna noti kilpisham.
kurvanna
noti kilvisham.
Such a man of understanding acts with mind and intelligence perfectly controlled, gives up all sense of
all sense of proprietorship.
proprietorship over his possessions, and acts only for the bare necessities of life. Thus working, he is not affected by sinful reactions. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prajna Mataji.
I will do project 22nd if kids are not available. So Yadrikshala bhasantushto
Yadrichalabha
Labha santushto
Dvandatito bimatsaraha
dvandvatito
to
vimatsaraha
Samasiddha vasiddhocha
Samaha
samasiddhava siddhaucha
Vimatsara
Kirtvapi na nibadhyate.
kritvapi nani
Nibadyate.
In the translation by His Divine Grace Abhay Charna Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. He who is satisfied with gain which comes of its own accord, who is free from all duality and does not envy, who is steady in both success and failure, is never entangled, although performing actions. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu. So we'll repeat 20. Narsima Prabhu or Tyagu Prabhu.
Yes, Ji.
Yes, Prabhu. So text 20.
Text 20. Tyaktava karma palasangam
Tyaktava karma
Karma
Sangam.
nityatripto nirashraya
nityatripto nirashraya
karmani abhiprabhaptopi
karmani
abhipravrittopi
naiva kinchit kartotisha.
naiva kinchit karoti.
Translation Ji. Abandoning all attachments to the results of his activities, ever satisfied and independent, he performs no fruitive action, although engaged in all kinds of undertakings. Hare Krishna Papaji, thank you.
Thank
Hare
you.
Krishna.
Tyagu Prabhu.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Narsima Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhu. Nirashiryat chittatma
Nirashiryata chittatma
tyakta sarva parigraha
tyakta sarva parigraha
shariram kevalam karma
shariram kevalam karma
kurvannapnoti kilpisham.
kurvannapnoti kilpisham.
Translation by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Such a man of understanding acts with mind and intelligence perfectly controlled, gives up all sense of proprietorship over his possessions, and acts only for the bare necessities of life. Thus working, he is not affected by sinful reactions. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Narasimhan Prabhu. Ratipriya Mata, you want to do? Text 22.
Prabhu, I'm actually looking for the chapter. Which chapter are we in? I'm so sorry.
No, no problem. I am sharing my computer. You see there, you can
Okay.
see on the screen. Text 22.
Yeah, I can.
Text 22.
Yeah, I can.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I read the text and the translation.
Yes, Mata, you just read the first line, we'll repeat, and then you can continue like that.
Okay. Yadricha labha santushto
Yadrichalabha
Santushto
Vandvato Vimatsara
Vandvadito
Vimatsara
Samasiddhav Asiddhav cha
Samasiddhavasiddhavcha
Kritvapi na nibhadyate.
Kritvapi
Nibhadyate.
Translation by His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Jai Srila Prabhupada. He who is satisfied with gain which comes of its own accord, who is free from duality and does not envy, who is steady in both success and failure, is never entangled, although performing actions.
Thank you, Mataji.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Okay, Ajit Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Thank you. Thank you all for the reading. So now we'll just do the invocation prayer and then we can start the discussion. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Ruta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunatanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deenabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya eva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So 20, 21 and 22. So 20. Tyaktava karma phala sangam nitya tripto nirashrayah karmani abhi pravritto api neva kinchit karoti saha. So, we had seen that in in 16, actually verses 16 to 24, those 9 verses, last time also we had discussed that here in these verses, Krishna is describing the characteristics of a person who acts in devotional service, person who is a devotee. And of course, the characteristics that we've been reading about, they're very advanced and something for us to aspire to. At this stage, we might feel that we're not able to conduct ourselves in a manner that is described here by Krishna. But certainly these are targets, these are goals for us to try and accomplish in order to be perfect devotees. And of course, we may never be perfect devotees, but the mercy of the acharyas, Sri Prabhupada, the gurus, that is what will carry us through despite our imperfections. Because if we had been perfect, we would never be here. So the perfect devotees come here to help aspiring devotees like ourselves. But Krishna is describing here to Arjun the characteristics that devotees have so that we may know what target we need to achieve. We may know when we compare ourselves against these benchmarks, how much progress we have made, how much progress we still have to make. So when we think about what we were prior to devotional service, prior to coming to devotional service, and when we compare ourselves with where we are at, that gives us a lot of hope and enthusiasm when we see that, yes, some progress has been made. And if we've made progress already, then that firms up our faith even more, that if we could do this much, then we can do more. And Krishna has helped us achieve this much. He is there in our hearts. He is there in our heart. He will continue to give us the guidance, the knowledge, the abilities, the resources to continue to make spiritual progress such that we can please him. So from our side, what is really important is the desire to try and please Krishna. The desire to try and please Krishna is what will be attractive for Krishna. We may not be perfect, that's fine. But if we have a desire to improve, desire to try and please Krishna, then he rewards that desire. So here in the translation for 20, Krishna says, abandoning all attachment to the results of his activities, ever satisfied and independent. He performs no fruitive action, although engaged in all kinds of undertakings. So see, this is so interesting and so relevant to us, meaning to grahastas like us who are engaged in jobs and various responsibilities, looking after children, so on and so forth. So Krishna says, although engaged in all kinds of undertakings, and we can relate to this, we are engaged in all kinds of undertakings, right? We're working, we're parents, we're looking, we have role in society, so on and so forth. But Krishna says that even if you're in this situation and you're performing all kinds of activities, there is a way that while performing these activities, you could be in the state of performing akarma and not vikarma or just karma. So once again, akarma means all activities are in devotional service, for the service and pleasure of the Lord. Vikarma, of course, is the opposite, doing everything that is not recommended. And karma is simply following the Vedic injunctions for fruitive results. Oh, I'll perform this yajna and this puja and this sacrifice and I'll get such and such result. That is karma. That is fine. That is good. But the problem with that is you perform that karma, good karma, according to Vedic injunctions for benefit, but then you have to come back to this material world to enjoy that benefit. That is very risky, because when we are in this material world, there's every chance of slipping and performing vikarma. Then you have to suffer for that. So that's why Krishna says better thing is perform devotional service, which is a karma. Try and come out of this material world. Don't stay here only. So one characteristic that we've seen of the devotee is abandoning all attachment to the results of his activities, ever satisfied and independent. So over here, Krishna is saying, when a person's mentality becomes that I'm going to perform this duty for Krishna's service, to try and please Krishna, what happens is that the person's mind becomes detached from the actual result. For example, let's say a person is running a business, and so in the business, you don't know how many customers are going to come to you that day. And the person says, okay, it's fine. Whether I get 1 customer or I get 100 customers, whatever Krishna's will, I will accept that. And then with whatever I earn, I'll maintain myself and use the rest for Krishna's service. And a very good example of this mentality, of this mindset, is a wonderful devotee called Sridhar Kolavecha Sridhar. Kolavecha Sridhar, as many of you may know, he used to sell leaves of banana trees. So Kela is, banana. So he used to, that was a very simple business that he used to engage in. And he was very simple, very poor actually. And as we know the story, I mean, he didn't even have a proper roof on his house. He was very poor, but he was satisfied. He was satisfied with whatever income he would get from it. He used to maintain himself with the bare minimum required, and the rest he used to use worshipping Mother Ganga, using his income in Krishna's service. So again, like I said in the beginning, these are characteristics of very perfect devotees. Kolavecha Sridhar was not an ordinary person like you and I. He was an eternal associate of the Supreme Lord who had taken birth in Gora Leela to accompany the Lord, and he performed these activities, these pastimes, and he set this wonderful example for us to follow. So moving on, actually here in the purport, Prabhupada says something very interesting. He says a Krishna conscious person acts out of pure love for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and therefore he has no attraction for the results of the action. So he's acting out of love for the Supreme Lord. We are trying to get to that point. We are, at least I can say for myself, I'm nowhere close to it. So we should not feel that this is impractical advice or this is impossible advice. It is neither impractical nor impossible. It is practical because there are examples in modern times. Kolavecha Sridhar, for example, that I mentioned, a real person. So it's not impractical, it's real. But we should also not think that this is just, so it's not theoretical, it's not impractical, but is it possible for everybody? At some point, maybe, but definitely something to aspire to. By the mercy of the Supreme Lord, we will at some point get there, even if it is not in this lifetime. Excuse me. Krishna says that if you perform devotional service, then there's a pathway to going back to God, and you can go to the Bhoma Leela, where the Lord's activities are taking place in a particular universe, and the Lord cleanses off all of our material attachments and desires, and you start engaging in devotional service there, you get trained, and then you go to the spiritual world. So the opportunity will be created by the Supreme Lord. We just simply have to have the desire and let him take charge. So then in the next verse, he says, Nirashir yata chittatma tekta sarva parigraha. And in the translations, we'll just jump to translate. Such a man of understanding acts with mind and intelligence perfectly controlled. So mind and intelligence perfectly controlled. Let's go back to that analogy of the chariot and the horses. Horses are the senses, and the horses are being controlled by
Roads. That is the mind.
Rein.
the reins, which are the mind. Yes. And then Who is higher than the mind?
Intelligence.
Buddhi.
Intelligence.
Intelligence.
Intelligence is in the analogy, who is the intelligence?
Charity.
Charity. So here Krishna says the person acts with mind and intelligence perfectly controlled. Now, what does this mean? If the mind and intelligence is perfectly controlled, where are they getting the direction from? Who are they listening to?
Soul.
So,
They are listening to the soul, and the soul is listening to,
Super soul.
God.
yeah, the super soul, who is seated within the same chariot right next to the soul. And what is the mind? Who is the mind not listening to?
Intelligence.
No, the other way around. I mean, because mind and intelligence are perfectly controlled. So intelligence and mind, they are in sync with each other. And who is the mind not listening to?
To sense.
Senses, exactly. You see, in my situation, for example, I'm listening to the senses, and trying not to. But the perfectly controlled person, the senses cannot control the person's mind, because they are in complete synchronization. Mind, intelligence, soul, super soul. Soul is listening to the super soul. Super soul gives direction. Soul listens, tells the intelligence, controls the mind. Mind controls the senses. Everything is perfect. So this is the situation of the person we are reading about in text 21. Such a man of understanding acts with mind and intelligence perfectly controlled. And then what does he do? Gives up all sense of proprietorship over his possessions. So this is where a lot of people find this difficult, that how can you give up sense of proprietorship over your possessions? In one way, it is very simple. When a person is acting with mind and intelligence perfectly controlled, that means the person realizes that, okay, I am a servant of the super soul, the supreme Lord who is sitting within my heart. I am the servant of that person. And everything belongs to the supreme Lord. So if everything belongs to the supreme Lord, then what am I taking proprietorship over? I myself belong to the Lord. So how can I say that this belongs to me, this belongs to me, this belongs to me? Well, for legal purposes, maybe if we have to go to a bank, the bank will say, okay, this money is yours. But basically, we know that the money is coming from Krishna. Everything is basically his. We are the caretakers of that small piece of Krishna's entire property. But the problem becomes a false ego. False ego says, this is mine. And then Prabhupada very nicely describes, if we have 1 million, then we say, oh, now I'm going to do these things, and I'll have 2. Then the 2 multiplied to 4. Then I'll become Elon Musk. I'll be the world's richest man, this and that. So all this planning goes on in our mind. And why is Elon Musk the world's richest man? Because of Krishna's arrangement. He had pious credits in his previous lives. So he has gotten this money. How many lifetimes he spent and accumulated pious credits, that we don't know. But in this particular lifespan, maybe for 40 years, 50 years, whatever, certain amount of time, he will have opulence and richness. It's all because of past pious credits. But Krishna says that an intelligent person takes no sense of proprietorship over his or her possessions, because they know it all belongs to Krishna. So when they know that it belongs to Krishna, then what do? They act only for the bare necessities of life. After all, you have to eat your food. So he will spend some money, go and buy, groceries and so on and so forth, pay for the house, pay for your car, gas, all these things. So the practical necessities they take care of, but they are very clear in their mind that everything belongs to Krishna. Everything belongs to Krishna, and whatever they have is due to the mercy of Krishna. Thus working, he is not affected by sinful reactions. So it is such a logical progression. When you combine 20 and 21, so the person is acting with this knowledge that, okay, everything belongs to Krishna. If everything belongs to Krishna, then the person has no attachment to the result of his activities. He's saying, okay, I'm using this shop that I have been given in Krishna's service. Krishna said, today you'll get $5. It's fine. Tomorrow he said you get $500. Okay, fine. So there is no attachment to the result. There's no attachment to the result. Now that's a very high standard. But what it does do for us is that in day-to-day life, when we face ups and downs, we start remembering, okay, this is due to Krishna's will. And Krishna knows better than I do about what is good for me and what I deserve and what I don't deserve. I might think that I deserve to be the king of this planet. Every person, most ordinary people think like that, right? Putin thinks that he should be the king of a certain tract of land outside of Russia. So he's doing all kinds of things to expand his empire. That is one form of sense gratification, right? He's trying to gratify his senses, he's trying to gratify his mind. The other side, NATO says, no, we'll not let you satisfy your mind in this way. We will control. So they are trying to satisfy their senses by saying, okay, if you do this, we will do this. If you do this, we will impose sanctions on you. So they're just fighting. They're just fighting for nothing. I mean, seriously, if we think about it, what has this war accomplished? It's only produced misery. Nobody has achieved anything. Now Putin is upset, West is upset, everybody in the middle is upset, people are upset, so many people are being killed. Nothing is being achieved. Nothing good has come out of it. And our Shastra explains this is to be expected. When people act out of selfishness, act out of false ego, all they're trying to do is find ways to satisfy their false ego. And they don't realize what kind of sinful karma they are incurring. But in text 21, Krishna says that when a person understands that nothing belongs to him, everything belongs to Krishna, then thus working, he is not affected by sinful reactions. Person engages in honest work, no hanky-panky here and there, no under the table dealings, no wrong thing. A person works honestly, gets whatever income they get, they're satisfied. They use part of it in Krishna's service. They maintain themselves. They do the logical thing. You must save for the future. You must, use some percentage in Krishna's service. All these sorts of things. So a person develops that mentality, and that keeps them clean and pure. And that is what Krishna is saying, that's the art of working. That you perform any kind of activity, but you're not affected by sinful reactions. And then again, now in text 22, some very nice words have been used. Yadricha laba santushto. Santushto, of course, means satisfied. So that is one key word to think about. Next one, dvandvatito vimatsara. Vimatsara, without envy. Without envy. There's no envy that, okay, I should have more than that person. So in the example that we were talking about, Putin is saying, why does NATO have this? I should go and grab Ukraine, this and that. This is all envy. You see? So, but a person in Krishna consciousness is vimatsara, without any envy. Sama siddhava asiddhaucha. So sama means very steady, calm, steady. Siddhav in success and asiddhav in failure. So there is another dvandava. Dvandva means duality. Duality means sometimes there's good, sometimes there's bad. Sometimes there's happiness, sometimes there's stress, sometimes success, sometimes failure. So Krishna is saying such a person is steady in both success and failure, and therefore the person is never entangled. Again, this is a very high standard, but it's not impractical. There are examples of this. And again, from Gora Leela, another example of this is Madhavendra Puri. Madhavendra Puri was completely renounced, and he, in fact, in the purport, Prabhupada says in the third sentence there, he neither begs nor borrows, but he labors honestly as far as in his power and is satisfied with whatever is claimed by his own honest labor. And this is exactly how Madhavendra Puri was. Even when he was a mendicant in Vrindavan, he never begged. He never begged. Whenever somebody would feel inspired to give him food and whatever, he would eat. Otherwise, he would not. Of course, for us to follow that standard is practically impossible. We have to eat 3 times a day. Madhavendra Puri, again, being an associate of the Lord, had a different, they have transcendental spiritual bodies. Their hunger and thirst is not fathomable by they are not bothered by hunger and thirst. So Madhavendra Puri's story is very interesting. There's so many incidents of his life that support this. So one simple thing was that he never begged. Whenever somebody would feel inspired, they would give him food and he would eat. So much so that at one point, so Krishna was so pleased with him that one day Krishna appeared to him in the form of a cowherd boy, and he brought some milk for him. And he said, Baba, you're sitting here under this tree, you're hungry and all that. Here, I brought you some milk. And a very nice story then followed from there. Anyway, we won't get into the past time now. But the point is that these are real people who have lived in our times 500 years ago, 400 years ago, 200 years ago, and they demonstrated these qualities. So for us, we may find this difficult, but it's something to aspire to. And it also indicates to us that if and when and as and when, by Krishna's mercy, by the mercy of the Acharyas, we elevate ourselves to the spiritual platform, the Lord accepts us, these qualities will manifest themselves in us. So for now, if we meditate upon these qualities, try and develop them to the extent that we can, try and, there'll always be success and there'll always be failure in our lives. But in each of those times, if we remind ourselves that everything is happening by the mercy of Krishna, by the will of Krishna, then that is pleasing to the Lord. That's the right attitude for us to have. That will help keep us calm and controlled. And while we may not be Madhavendra Puri, but we can at least try to follow in his footsteps. So the great acharyas, the Mahajans, etc., we can only follow them. We cannot imitate them. Prabhupada used this example very often. He says Shivji could drink ocean of poison and keep it in his throat. We cannot. If we try to drink even a drop of poison, we immediately die. So we have to follow the acharyas, but not copy them. But this is the whole idea here, that Krishna is explaining to Arjun that these are some of the qualities that manifest in a devotee. And from our perspective, our day-to-day life perspective, we can try to use this to measure our own success. And think about the times when we have acted not according to these standards, and try and improve ourselves, that going forward, maybe we should try to act according to these standards. And that takes constant practice. And of course, interaction with devotees, talking to someone you trust as to how I can improve myself, how can I do things better, how can I advance in spiritual life, so on and so forth. So these things take interactions. These things take a little bit of hand-holding, a bit of guidance, and constant association with devotees helps us access these resources. So these were some of the high-level points that I wanted to make regarding these verses. I think it's good to now open it up for discussion. People have thoughts, comments, questions, ideas to share. It'll be very good.
It was really nice, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna, Dandapana. So, especially, Kulavecha Sridhar's, like the past time you told, it reminded, he was so humble. and he was so dear to Mahaprabhu. So Nimai. So Nimai was going, and he was teasing Kulavacha Sridhar, like this banana leaf you are giving very costly. I mean, it is too much price. You give it less price. Kulavacha Sridhar said, no, it is already less price. No, you are asking double price. You have to give in less price. So for you, anything, Kulavacha Sridhar told, for you, anything you give, that is fine, or you can take it free. So Nimai asked, like, what you do with the money? So as you said, like, he used half of the money for his, his survival, and half of the money for the Ganga worship. So Nimai asked, like, why you do the Ganga worship then? So those all conversations are so sweet, like when we hear from the pure devotees, from Guru Varga, it depends upon the level of purity. Means it's so mesmerizing and so, like good. So you covered very nicely, touching Prabhuji, and it was really nice. And so as we hear so much, we are, like it's really purify us these past times. So thank you, Prabhuji, that one. And Madhavendra Puri, also you touched that was good. Like yeah, thank you so much, Prabhuji. It was really wonderful session today. So yeah, nice. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhu. So yeah, basically the point is that, the Lord is attracted by the mentality, by the sweet mentality of the devotee, the surrendered attitude of the devotee. And that's why with Kulavacha Sridhar, he used to come and haggle with him.
Right.
This is the Lord interacting with you. So how nice it is. It's not about money. It's about having the association of the Lord and playing with the Lord. Same thing with Madhavendra Puri. I mean, there are many more stories of Madhavendra Puri, but we let other people ask questions and comments and rope it in as necessary.
Yeah, in the same line, Prabhuji, when Kulavacha Sridhar, sometimes he did not see Nimai, so he become very, like anxious, like why Nimai did not come today? Why he's not asking? Why he's not, like, so he was, because, somehow when we get the rasa, so, like we are not so fortunate that we can see the God, but Kulavacha Sridhar was able to. So he was so anxious, like why I'm not able to see Nimai. So it was really good. Okay, thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
So Jani Mata, you have something to say?
Yes, Prabhuji. So, in 421, where it says, the one who acts only for the bare necessities of life, Prabhuji, it's very difficult to determine what is bare necessity. That is a real-time question for all of us. That is where I think everyone gets dilemma. Like once my Prabhu was asking a question in one of the satsang. Okay, we listen all this and then, but still we strive for material. Oh, we have to make this investment. Why? Because, so how do we underline that bare necessity? I really don't know what Srila Prabhupada said, or he would have given more examples. I mean, I myself don't have a proper guidance, Prabhuji, because we run into that insecure, oh, no, we need to this. What about our kids? I mean, that means, are we not having faith in Krishna? We have, but it's very difficult to apply that. How to take that, Prabhuji?
Yeah, very good point, Madhaji. Very good question. It is a dilemma because we all save for the future, and the Shastra says you must save for the future. We save for our old age. You must save. The Shastra also says you must. But then the question becomes how much? And again, that's a very personal thing. It's a personal thing. Why? Because let's say if somebody's earning $100 and another person is earning $1,000, right? At the end of the day, both people stomach will be filled with the same amount of food. But question becomes whether you're buying that food from a reasonable store or you're going to a store which is going to show off your status. You know, I didn't go to this simple grocery store. I went to the high level grocery store. You know, so that kind of discretion, Krishna's, or that kind of discretion we can probably apply to our lives. Instead of doing things in a showy way, we do it in a way that is more, you know, it gets the job done, and at the same time, it's not substandard. But how much do we need to save for the future? Nobody knows. But at the end of the day, you know, whether somebody's saving $100 or somebody's saving $1,000, if in our heart we are dependent on Krishna, then that's the right approach to take. I was listening to one very interesting lecture by one of our ISKCON gurus, and he was narrating this story of, you know, the richest at that point. This was like in the mid 70s. The richest man in the US at that time, and he was sick. He was very sick. He was like about to leave his body and all that. And so there was no shortage of money, but there's only so much that anybody can do, right? In terms of nobody can stop a person from dying. So so they, like, someone asked him, what is your, like, what do you wish for? And his reply was, I wish I could just eat, you know, the equivalent of one chapati properly without having any discomfort. So the point being made was that such a simple thing, eventually the body won't be able to handle even that. And any amount of money you have will not be able to fix it. So better approach is to kind of be aware that the body is mortal. We can plan logically a little bit for the future, but we can never be 100% certain that I can buy insurance policy for this also, for that also, for that also, for that also, for that also. You know, I mean, you have to buy insurance. You must have, and these are the logical things to do. But at the end of the day, be dependent on Krishna. There's only so much you can do. You know, if something really starts worrying you too much, then it means you're getting too, you know, you're not kind of thinking that our faith maybe is not as strong. You know, at the end of the day, leave it to Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Can I share some comments on this, Prabhu?
Please, Prabhu. Yeah, certainly.
Okay, thank you, Prabhu. So we all did Bhakti Shastri, right? In Bhakti Shastri, we learned about nectar of instruction, nectar of devotion. So in that, Srila Rupa Goswami, that is why this confusion, right? As you gave the example of $1,000 and $100, right? So there is no relative. So Srila Rupa Goswami, he divides as a percentage.
Right.
So Rupa Goswami says that one has to set 50% aside, whatever we earn, whether it's $100 or $1,000, 50% aside, we have to set for God and God activities, basically bhakti. Okay. And 25% for relatives and family members. Not to, again, please their senses, but using those wealth, we have to preach them also to become Krishna consciousness. So we have to set 25% for the relatives and family members, and 25% emergency purposes you have to save. So 50, 20, 20. If you really ask, that is a percentage we have to ideally do. So I'm not sure if we are doing that. because we earn $5,000 per month, example, then we have to give $2,500 as charity every month. So if we don't do that, but he says this is the ideal thing to do. Now that way we don't, first thing, we don't get attached, because we get attached only if we have sufficient wealth. We start planning, we start doing that. If you don't have wealth, then we don't get attached, right? So in fact, compared to rich and poor is more happier in that sense, because he does not have money and he knows that he can't get money the way rich person gets. So anyways, he says 25% we have to keep for emergency. So that is, emergency is also covered. In future, if we get any serious thing, then we can cover that. So that is a Saujanya Mataji, the answer for your question. So,
Yeah.
Further follow-up question is, will the 25% be sufficient for our emergencies depending on our faith?
that depends.
That's the whole thing.
Krishna, it depends on Krishna. You did your part. So rest you have to leave it to Krishna. He has to do his part also. So, but he, through Srila Rupa Goswami, mentioned to you that you have to save 25% for emergencies. You did that.
Yeah, and there was living expenses piece too. I think it was 25, 25, 25, 25. That was my recollection. 25 for living expenses, 25 for charity, 25 for relatives, 25 for emergency.
Actually, that 50% which we use for godly purposes, that includes that our day-to-day.
Oh, maintenance. Yeah.
So day-to-day maintenance should be
that
all
was
godly activities.
Yeah, 25%.
Yeah. So
yeah. See, I mean, so again, these are the standards. Rupa Goswami and all, they set these standards for us, and it's hard for us to follow. Of course, Rupa Goswami, Sanatana Goswami, at the end of when they kind of retired, they just gave everything away, and they basically were mendicants. Again, I mean, we cannot live under trees in Vrindavan like they did, you know. So the point that they're making is everything belongs to Krishna. Everything belongs to Krishna. So if we develop this attitude that everything belongs to Krishna, and then whatever we get, say thank you very much. Whatever we don't get, don't lament over it. Say, oh, that's fine, Krishna. Whatever your desire, I'll try to use whatever I have in my possession in your service. It's more about developing that attitude, you know, that will be pleasing to the Lord, and then that will satisfy us also in the long run.
Prabhuji wanted to comment in that time. So, as Mataji asked, like, what is the bare necessities for us or for the human being or living means human being? What Srila Prabhupada recommended, what Srila Prabhupada said. So I remember, Srila Prabhupada said some point in time in lecture, like 1 acre land and 1 cow, which is minimum required to live a life. So, but whether it is doable or not doable, that is the standard, and what we can follow, it's up to us. I mean, like in the Shastra, that will be given, we have to perform 100% kind of things. So that is the bare minimum necessity. Just Prabhupada said, 1 acre land, 1 cow. So now what we are setting that as per our a standard, like whether am I satisfied with the 1 acre land? So no. So for me, 5 acre, 10 acres, 20 acres, or what? So 1 cow, 10 cow, 100 cows. So that means if I'm keeping 10 cow, that means I'm following 10% of what Prabhupada said. If I am using 10 acres land, Prabhupada said 1 acre land. So I'm following Prabhupada's, what he said, 10% of the 100% what he said. So, so Prabhupada said like 1 acre land and 1 cow. It is sufficient to survive. Why he said he had, and for that only he wanted to establish the Varnashram Dharma. And for that only, if we remember, that is the Gita Nagari, he had, that plan.
Farm communities, yeah.
Yeah, farmhouse. So that is what, yeah. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu. Other thoughts, comments? Yes, Narasimhan Prabhu, you got your hand raised.
Thanks, Prabhuji, for the class. And you mentioned about the Lord when we were reading these verses and how these are like the ideal platform for executing devotional service. So I was just thinking that one might feel that how is it going to, when are we going to be able to, execute bhakti on the ideal platform or things like those. But then I was just reminded of what you were explaining earlier when we just started the class, that the Lord is there as the super soul, and it is really He who is helping us at every stage. Even though it may appear that we came to bhakti, and like I came into bhakti and I did this, I did that. So yes, Prabhuji just was trying to remember that, because like I was hearing somewhere that the Lord depends. He just expects our desire and our effort rather than the result. So it is ultimately really up to Him how much we can progress, and as far as one has the desire, then the Lord is there to guide us. That's all. Hare Krishna.
Absolutely. Hare Krishna. Prabhu. No, that's a very wonderful thought, because like we read in verse 22, it says Yadricha Labha Santushto and Dvandvato Nimatsara. So duality, that means success and failure. These are given. But if a person, so in other words, if a person is totally dependent on Krishna, still there will be some success, still there will be some failure. But the point is that the devotee who is dependent on Krishna, who has full faith in Krishna, full confidence in Krishna, is not affected by the dualities of this material world. Like when success comes, oh, he's thrilled, he's so happy. And then when some failure comes, he's so morose, then they lose enthusiasm for doing devotional service. That's what he's trying to remind us, that keep the devotional service steady. When you're successful, say thank you. When you're not successful, still say thank you. Why? Because when challenges come to us in life, we wonder, okay, why am I suffering? The point is, Krishna actually has given very little suffering. We don't know actually that we deserved so much more suffering. But Krishna, by His mercy, because we are trying to follow devotional service, gave only very little. And that much which is beneficial for us to get even closer to Him. So success and failure will always be there, but the devotee who's dependent on Krishna doesn't get affected by all this.
Yes, Prabhu. Thank you, Prabhuji. There was one pastime I was hearing about Arjuna, who was he was asleep on the lap of Krishna, and there was something happening on the battlefield. So they all came running to inform Arjuna. So he was basically sleeping like he's a pure devotee of the Lord, and then he was uttering the Lord's name at that time. So he was like so much faith that even when he was whether asleep or always dependent on the Lord. It just reminded me of that Leela, Prabhuji, on how even though in the pure devotees' lives there may still be externally it may appear that they are having difficulties, but since they are fully surrendered, they don't feel anything about it.
Right. Exactly.
Actually,
thank you for sharing that, Prabhu. That's very nice.
Narasimha Prabhu, that is actually a mercy of the Lord. Now, because these devotees who are suffering, externally we might see their suffering, but Krishna says in Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th canto, Yasyaham anugrhnami arishye tad dhanam shanai tato dhanam tyajati asya swajana dukkha dukkitam. You know this sloka, right? So Krishna says, especially if I favor somebody, I gradually deprive him of his wealth. Then the relatives and friends of such poverty-stricken man abandon him. In this way, he suffers one distress after another. So if a devotee, pure devotee is suffering, means that is completely mercy of the Lord. Okay, so how much our wealth we accumulate, finally, if we become pure devotees, definitely Krishna will take everything away.
Which shloka?
1088.8, Mataji, 10th canto, 88 chapter, 8th verse. It's a wonderful verse actually. Srimad Bhagavatam, yeah.
Yeah, and there are these, actually there are many of these, or a few others of these, which, and one other one that I keep getting reminded, same 10th canto, Tatya Anukampam Susamikshamano, Bhunjanivatma, Kritam Pakam. You know, he says, but in spite of that, Hidvag Vapur Bir Vidadan Namaste Jivetayo Mukti Padesha Dayabhag. So, in spite of those difficulties, Hidvag, with the heart, words, Hid, Hrid, Vag, Vapu, in the body, Vidadhan Namaste, who keeps offering me obeisances, Jivetayo, who lives like this, Mukti Pade, Sadayabhag, right? He's eligible for liberation, Mukti Pade Sadayabhag, because, and Prabhupada says very nicely, he says, just as a child just has to live his life to get the inheritance from the father, you know, similarly, if a devotee just leads his life in Krishna consciousness, regardless of up and down, just lead your life in Krishna consciousness, the Lord will award you at the end of this life the spiritual kingdom. In fact, again, we were talking about Gora Leela a little bit. This one thing that I got reminded about this verse, Mukti Padesha Dayabhag, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, when Mahaprabhu was preaching to him, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was actually impersonalist, but then he became a devotee, and then he said, Ki, my Lord, this Mukti Padesha Dayabhag should be changed to Bhakti Padesha Dayabhag. So, because he said the devotee doesn't want Mukti, doesn't want liberation. But then the Lord very nicely explained that even Mukti is representative of the Supreme Lord. So that is why Mukti Padesha Dayabhag is fine. You don't have to change this verse to Bhakti Padesha Dayabhag. But anyway, the point is, you know, it's challenging when you're facing difficulties, suffering and all that. Sometimes, I mean, it is definitely challenging. But these are the wonderful, beautiful reminders that come from the Supreme Lord. And they help you through it.
Yes, Prabhuji, and even about the point about desire, and then the Lord is our Lord fulfills that desire. We see, like if I'm personally looking at my life, if I desire to be, come to Krishna consciousness, I don't think so. I didn't know anything about it, but still, by the Lord's mercy, devotee's mercy, one has come. So it is much more than what one can even desire.
That's a very nice point, Prabhu. A little bit of desire you keep in your heart, and then the Lord keeps reciprocating. Thank you for that, Ramcham Prabhu.
Yeah,
Yeah.
probably just I
All
was
necessities
looking
are
into it.
satisfied
It's
by
not 1 acre, it's 4 acre. So 1 cow and 4 acre lands.
Yeah.
So that Prabhupada recommended to live a life.
Thank you, Ramchandra Prabhu.
And what Mukta Sangha Prabhu said, that was absolutely, that is there in the Nectar of Devotion. Ajarupa Goswami recommended. So,
Yeah.
So both references we can try following how much we can. Yeah, that's important.
Yeah.
Mukta Sangha Prabhu, Prabhuji, you mentioned Canto 10, 8th or 18th?
8th chapter, 8th.
8th verse. Oh,
okay. 1088.8. Okay, Prabhu. Anybody has to share anything before we end the session? Okay, I think we are good.
Prabhuji, it's not
Next,
8.
oh, sorry, go ahead, please.
Prabhuji, you said 1088?
1088.8.
88. Oh.
Was, yeah. Okay, Prabhuji. Mataji. I think we've
Thank
nobody
you.
has any more question. We can stop here.
As always, very interesting. So
Yeah.
thank you for sharing such a knowledge. So before I let everyone go, I have one announcement about Pauganda Pravachan this week, this Sunday. It's a Pauganda Pravachan week, and this week it will be by Arav. He's from Dallas, and he studies at Gurukul school in Dallas. So he's just 9 years old. So he'll be speaking about pastimes of Prahlad Maharaj. So please
Very
attend.
nice.
Yeah. So it is at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, same Zoom credentials. Please attend and encourage. And if any one of you know any kids who is desiring to speak about Vedic topics in line with our Srila Prabhupada's teachings, so please let me know so I can schedule them. Anywhere kids between 4 or 5 years until 15, 16 years high school. So they can come and preach on this Pauganda Pravachan platform. Okay, thank you again for joining this Friday regular session. So we'll see you next week. And of course, in Pauganda, if you can attend, that will be good.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, anything special for Narasimha Chaturdasi coming up?
What day is it, Prabhu?
Next Sunday, not this Sunday.
It falls on Sunday?
I think so. I'm not very sure, but we had discussed. Mukund, you know that?
Next Sunday.
Yeah, it's next Sunday, Prabhu.
There'll be festival in the temple, right?
Next
Yes,
to
I'm
next
just asking.
Sunday.
Next to next Sunday. Yeah, okay.
Next to
On
next.
May 15th.
May 15th, Prabhu.
May 15th.
Oh, May 15th, yeah. So there'll be festival in the temple, big festival.
Yes, that is there. Their drama and all are there. So
Yeah. Yeah. So the schedule has not been sent out yet, but yeah, it will come to all of us in newsletter.
yeah.
Sure, Prabhu.
And when you announce that one, that Prabhuji is coming?
June 2nd,
Yeah.
June 2nd, Thursday, June 2nd, Thursday evening. Okay. Please come. That is in-person event. Okay. So they'll be talking about Varnashrama Dharma, specifically Grihasthashram.
June 2nd.
So thank you, Ajit Krishna Prabhu again.
Okay, Prabhu. Thank you all very much.
Thank you,
Mataji.
Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Vancha kalpatru Nam Panchakoti Vaishnavin ki jai.
Prabhupada ki jai.
Prabhupada ki jai.
Prabhu ki
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
jai.
Hare Krishna.
Jai. Okay, Prabhupada.